Joe, you've founded or co-founded a group called NatCAN, National Community Activist Network. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
The National Community Activist Network, yeah. What we did originally, Guy, was a group of us formed. I was just one small part of that. We formed the Northwest Community Activist Network, which was slightly before the change of government, but just for reasons which I won't analyse too deeply now. It was very successful, and it was quite successful. But what we realised fairly quickly was we should have done it nationally. There were various groups still around the country, but those were the days when funding was more readily available for community development, etc., which it isn't now. But there was money around to get these things off the ground. So a group of us, I think it was about 9 or 10 of us, got our heads together and to see what we could do with very little funding indeed, without funding really, what we could do. And what's the real difficulty for people is geography, Beachy. You can't meet face to face and have discussions all the time. Though Skype to a degree has helped, of course, that's been a big step forward, this online communication, like we're engaged with right now. But what we did was create an online interactive website that anybody can be part of. Okay, so you can have discussions. You're not constrained by where the money's coming from. There is no structure in NatCAN. It isn't constitutionalised. There's no secretary. There's no treasurer. There is no, it's not formal like that.
So it's just like a kind of an open forum where anyone can post information or, take part in discussions and that kind of thing.
And use it as well, because what you've got instantly, you've got a captive audience of active people who are involved. You're not trying to educate people. You're talking to people who are already involved. So and you don't have to be looking over your shoulder where the funding is coming from and being careful not to offend. So that's what NatCAN is. It's a free online forum where people who are activists can get support. If you're trying to change the world in any shape or form, or just you're a part of it, it's somewhere where you can get support.
And is it sort of mainly aimed at the UK?
Yes, mainly aimed at the UK. But there's lots of people who are not from the UK in there. There's a lot, from all over the place, because they browse for community activism and find it and then join up.
I guess you've got people coming in from all different walks of life. Like but seem like you've got teachers on there and all sorts of other professions, and each person or group has their own sort of thing that they're tackling, their own problem, or they're trying to change something that relates to them in some way. For the most part, I mean, do you think that there's certain issues that we all need to sort of kind of get together on?
I can see where you're coming from, Guy. Yeah, well, of course there is, mate. Of course there is. But there's so many books and have been written. There's so much on that topic of the bigger picture. And I think, I don't know, just my own personal point of view, mate. The bigger picture really is that whereas following other ideologies have caused wars, etc., which have been devastating. Look at the First World War and war in general, but climate change, we're being told by the scientists that life on Earth is being threatened. This planet could become inhabitable because of the way we are treating it now. That's a very, very, very serious topic. It's frightening even to think about it, really. But if that is the case, well, it's not the thing. If that's the case, is time. We don't have time. We don't have generations. We don't have millennia for it to resolve itself. So it's something that has to be dealt with. And if you accept the scientific explanation, that's a big worry. So it's. How do you deal with something on that magnitude? Very, very complex question. Very complex question. And for us in the United Kingdom, we live in a parliamentary democracy. That is the way, for want of a bad cliche, that's the way it is. So to get anything done legally through Parliament, it has to be done through Parliament to become legislative. So no matter what, in some degree, everything is related to politics. And then that's a major problem as well for most people now. In fact, most people are feeling quite disenfranchised. And in fact, the split between the normal population and politics is widening all the time. There are less and less people involved. People don't vote. In fact, young people talk about young people, and they just don't vote. The split between the political parties and the electorate is widening, and it's a really serious problem.
Yeah, I guess most people just look at politics. There's for the most part, a load of rich people breaking the law to benefit the rich buddies.
Well, I've never heard anybody say that except you. I do not see politics as a load of rich people breaking the law in fact, that is, for me, is absolutely a preposterous statement.
Well, it might be preposterous, but that's how most people see it. I mean, if you look at this whole sort of like 99% thing, there's a reason that most people saying we're part of the 99%. You've basically got this ultra rich 1% who are getting infinitely richer, and all of the politicians, or the vast majority of them, are bought out by them, especially in places like the States. But it's increasingly apparent that it's happening over here as well. If you look at like the NHS sell-off, and then you go and say, well, which of our politicians have shares or stocks in the private healthcare firms? And it's like, well, most of them, and the families have got them as well. Things like fracking and all the rest of it. So you look at where all the wealth's concentrated, and the politicians are all hooked in, most of them, not all of them, there are some good ones, but the vast majority seem to be inextricably hooked into the wealth game. And
let me explain myself a little bit, because you interrupted me there, which is fine. But what you've done, you've expressed what most people think, or a lot of people think these days.
Yeah, but what's your view on that? Because you're putting forward quite a different view that we have to somehow interface with these, and do you think it's possible, considering the politicians are all sort of on the bankroll of the rich 1%, from the mass populace's perspective? Do you think it's actually possible to have an effect on that? What's your view on it?
I'm trying to say so. I'm trying to tell you. I know exactly what you're trying to say, Guy. You don't need to phrase your question with 20 minutes of speech. I know instantly what you're trying to say, mate. What I was trying to say is the divorce between politics and the electorate is widening all the time, and there are reasons for that. Those aren't. There are reasons why that is happening. And what has happened over time is political parties formed mostly. We'll deal with Labour because it's an easy one. We can deal with the Tories in exactly the same way. They formed to represent a class of people. With the Labour Party, it was when people got the vote, and then first it was men and then it was women. So they represented a class of people, and were in there to pursue that class of people's aspirations. Now, to a degree, the Tory Party formed to represent the people of a different class of people, the upper class, the established wealth, the aristocrats, etc. But politics has evolved, and parties don't represent class anymore. What parties do now, what they've evolved to do now, is to govern. Political parties govern on behalf of the state. So David Cameron's vote and Ed Miliband's vote they're worth one vote. They're the same to any political party. Parties do not try to represent a class. They don't do it. They try to represent everybody. Everybody's vote's as good as each other. So they, for a while, can be the government, but they're not governing on behalf of the party. They're governing on behalf of, well, I'm using the word the state. Do you follow me? And I'm not defining what the state is. So politics isn't representative anymore. And the political parties don't represent anymore. So that is a very serious problem for democracy, because what we consider democracy, our democratic, our way of interfacing with the democratic process is through political parties. So what in the void, what is occurring is the parties on the extreme left and right, the radical ones on the outside, are attracting more and more people, because the mainstream parties, quite frankly, there is very, very little difference between them. Very, very little difference as well. UKIP's an example of disenfranchised people joining a fringe party. And there are other parties started, and as Left Unity's one, as an attempt to be an alternative for the Labour Party, because in my opinion, unfortunately, politics has evolved to what it is. And this, you mentioned there about pay and money and etc. So, and what you're relating to, I think, is the outcome of neoliberalism, where through deregulation and without analysing it, because all the books have been written anyway. But what has occurred is the a small minority of very rich people have been able to gradually take over the political system, and that's what's occurred. So that's a very, very, very serious and very difficult problem to for ordinary people like me and you, little people, and they say, what can you do? But you've just simply got to, if you're concerned, do what you think and try your best.
So, that being the case, though, that kind of comes back to my question earlier: is if you've got this small rich minority that's taken over most of the political system, what can we actually do? Because you could go and vote for the far right or the far left to try and get some party that represents your sort of worldview, but even that's not really solving anything, because, like you said before, we've got really huge issues like climate change, that it doesn't matter whether you're on the right or the left or in the middle or anywhere else, it's going to affect all life on this planet. And climate change is just one of the things. I mean, the weather, climate change is more about the weather, but you've got other serious issues like pollution. So, the oceans are literally filling up with plastic waste and stuff like that. You've got all sorts of leaks from the sort of petrochemical and fossil fuel industry globally. You all these other things. You've got fracking and so on. So you've got climate change is going to wipe us out. The pollution's getting so bad it's going to wipe us out, or at least most of nature. We're finding there was, I think it was the Daily Mail or some rag like that had an article where a turtle had been found with a plastic vibrator in its stomach. And these islands where all the birds, they died and they cut them open and the bellies are full of plastic, and so you've got all these big problems. So on the one hand, it's like, should we even care about the political system anymore? At worst, it's going to be running for its own agenda for the top 1%. At best, it's going to be splitting us into factions again. But there's these global problems that it doesn't, nature and the planet doesn't give a shit what our political views are. If the weather goes tits up, it's going to affect us all equally. So is there even any benefit to trying to, fix or make less evil the current sort of political system?
Well, that's what activism is all about. As I was saying from the beginning, there are many. Everybody can be active. They can do the best they can within their own capacity to do it. You know, it's within your own capacity, and there are many, many, many levels of doing it. You know, as we were saying, you can do it. There's lots you can do as an individual. There are lots of things you can do as an individual. There are lots of things you can do as neighbourhood groups. There is lots of things you can do on regional and political and national level. You know, it's whether if you're committed to it, if you're serious about what the problems that you have just reiterated very well indeed, which a lot of people are becoming more and more conscious of. You know, partly because of I think because of the internet, you know, and the more easy flow of information that we've got these days, which has changed everything. It's been a dramatic change in everything. You know, whether you like it or not, it's happened. That's what's happened, whether it suits you or it doesn't suit you. So you can, if you're concerned, there is a lot you can do, and if you don't know, you can get advice. If you do know, just do it to the best of your ability, because we need to change this system. Every system, there is no such thing as a perfect system. Everything's evolving. You can always improve anything, no matter what it is. You can improve it. You know. That's what nature is, isn't it? You know, that's a good template for it. Constantly evolving, constantly changing, constantly adapting. So we can constantly improve it. You know, we can improve it in many, many different ways. And the more of us that are involved in consciously trying to change it, consciously, the more likely positive change will be. You know, and so for activists, for all of us, you know, we just do as much as you can, as best you can with it. Put your heart and soul in it if you can, and do what you can, and there will be results. There are always results, you know. If you wanted to, you know, I think you were alluding to politics. Well, fine, and money. These are big issues, you know. Of course, I've got very strong views on those. I'm not expressing them quite as strongly as I might at the moment, but because, quite frankly, I am concerned, Guy, with people who are very confident in their viewpoint. People who think I am right, and the more people insist that they are right and they know, the more I think they don't know.
Yeah. Well, I guess one of the other issues that's making that worse at the moment is, say, a lot of people are on Facebook, for example. Facebook's got this thing sort of going in the background on its servers that works out what information to show you from other people. And it's based on what you've liked. So the more you like a certain topic or a certain viewpoint, the more of that you see on Facebook. So it creates like these echo chambers. It's putting everyone into their own little echo chamber where they're on Facebook like, oh, look, everyone's agreeing with me. But they're only seeing the stuff that agrees with them because they've not liked the stuff that doesn't agree with them.
Well, there's nuances in everything. You know, you've got to deal with everything's in constant flux and constant change. You know, and you just absorb it all as best you can and try to see through it as best you can. Speak to people like yourself, you know, on the same intellectual level as yourself, whichever that may be. You know, and reinforce your beliefs or have them altered by people who can explain things that make sound more logical to you. But in the back of your mind, if in the back of your mind you think that the way the world is at the moment could be improved, then go ahead and do your best to try and improve it. That's a fairly logical thing to me, and I think, you know, I keep using this term. I think that's what activists do, you know, and there are small. There are not a lot of them compared to the, you know, percent-wise within the general public for many various reasons. But I do believe where anything of any real social significance is happening, anything of any social significance is happening. If you analyse it and peel back all the layers, you'll find at the end it'll be one person who has got a vision and who is dedicated to that vision, and to a degree that other people are attracted to it and agree with them. So at the bottom of everything that is worthwhile, in my opinion, you'll find an activist. Or of course, there are different definitions of that term.
And one of the other things as well is a lot of the groups often start with like a small core group of like-minded people, not necessarily agreeing on everything, but at least agreeing on what that group's going to do. But you always get like this massive herd, if you like, of other people that will sort of generally agree with it, but not actually do anything. So it's like, I know you're like, for example, a big fan of having face-to-face meetings, to get things, get projects kicked off or whatever, because that allows you to see who's actually going to turn up and actually go out there and do something, who's actually getting up off their ass to do something. Do you see that as a big problem? A lot of the time, there's people saying all the right things, but they're not taking action.
Well, I don't see it as a problem. That's reality, And reality is, it's a hell of a lot better to be alive than to be dead. Okay. And we are fortunate to be alive. We're fortunate to be in this universe. We're fortunate to be here in this miracle of existence, let alone, so just let's, that's the way it is, But, some people are, by personality, active. Things happen, and some people go along with them and support them, and some people don't for various reasons. The more people who are committed, the more action there will be. But you never know that. You never know the end result of what you're doing. You might start off with the best intentions, the best intentions in the world, but you don't know what's going to happen because of what you're doing. It might turn out to be a bloody disaster.
I think it was some American TV producer or filmmaker or something said that the chief cause of problems is solutions. So you might be changing things with the right intention, but in doing so, you're creating a whole shitstorm of other problems without realising it. Only time will tell.
That was his opinion. I think most of the problems are caused by failures in communication. Personally, that's what I think is the problem. People, the inability to communicate.
One of the things I've been doing a lot more recently is actually getting out and meeting people face to face, and actually getting involved with real physical projects, be it at the farm or going on the Solidarity Sunday March for Barton Moss, or getting to that anti-war demo when they were talking about going to Syria. It was in Manchester and stuff like that. And do you think that helps with communication? Because a lot of the time people can be talking on Facebook. Sometimes when you meet them face to face, you get a completely different impression of who they are, what they're doing, and what the meaning is behind the words. Do you think actually meeting face to face and like physical meetings of people is still vital in this sort of online age?
It's not vital, but when you meet people face to face, you can understand them better because you pick up all the physical nuances, don't you? I mean, I've spent a great deal of my life living overseas, and it is almost impossible to judge a person who is not when you don't speak the same language, even if they speak your language for you. Like talking to somebody, if you're English, talking to somebody from England, in 10 minutes you know where they are and where they're coming from, But you can't do that if it's a foreigner speaking English. You've no idea. They're just speaking the language, So when you meet face to face, when you do meet face to face, you get to understand people a lot better. And really, if you listen to them, I'm a great fan of Paulo Freire. Yeah, I'll be careful how I pronounce that because there's so many different ways. But Freire is way of all listening to each other and then collectively, from collective knowledge, going ahead, not trying to impose, trying to teach as if the other person's an empty vessel that you have to fill up with knowledge. He's an educationist, a Brazilian educationist. Yeah, so collectively, when you meet and proper discussion occurs, it's not done through an agenda and only one topic spoken about and controlled. But you sort of see the group of people, what they are, what potential they have, and what you as a group of people can collectively do together. So Yeah, they're valuable face-to-face meetings, of course they are. I won't say vital because you can approach that through, you can approach that through Skype conference, for example, or through writing to each other, through discussions. There's different ways of doing it, but face-to-face is a good one. It's has its value, that's for sure.
Do you think that because you've obviously done a lot, over the years, and I think one of the things that I personally see in the current sort of way a lot of the sort of the younger generations are getting involved in activism is they sort of go onto some Facebook group, something like that, and talk about stuff, and they almost sort of like transition the mind into the future where all the problems have been sorted, and it's as if they're living in the future in their head. Does that make sense?
To to a degree, most people, in my opinion, most people think constantly of things that have happened to them. So the problems have come from the past, and then they project to when the problems will be, everything will be okay in the future. So the problems are all coming from the past, what's occurred in the past, and the answer is going to be in the future, but they don't really live in the now, live in the right now. That's sort of, I think a lot of people are like that. The right now is where you are, and don't be overwhelmed by what has happened before to get you to where you are, and don't think ahead to when it'll all be solved because of something, but just accept the now, right now, what's happening right now. Just give yourself a little pause and see what's happening. You will deal with the future fine as it comes. You will deal with it because you'll be ready for it, and you'll do the right things at the right time. But right now, the situation right now is fairly worrying. Two big things for me are uh, the way democracy is, and democracy really is all we've got. Democracy is the only thing we've got against total exploitation and domination by people with the power to do it. And the way that democracy is being dissipated and watered down by what's occurring, I think through the acceptance of the neoliberal philosophy on economics. I think that's why it's occurring. So democracy is a worry, and we just said the climate change issue, which is far greater than it's everything else. The way that we're destroying the biosystems on which all life depends, as if we human beings are somehow separate from nature, which I think is partly evolved over centuries, in fact millennia, partly through the religious experience. Not that I'm criticising it, but that's what's occurred, that we are somehow different than nature when we are, in fact, we are nature, we're very much part of it.
By definition, we are in the environment.
Yeah, we're destroying what everything that life depends on. Why we're doing it and how we're doing it, of course, we've had a talk about it, and I think it's possibly because of the way we govern ourselves, and particularly the way we govern ourselves financially. That's my opinion.
If there are people that are sort of they've projected themselves into the future, and that's kind of they're living their life out in this sort of future nirvana world. What would you say to them in terms of, getting them to put the feet back on the ground?
I'm not one for trying to lecture to people, mate. I'm really not. I mean, there are people who are trying to improve the situation all the time, and I try to concentrate my time and effort with them, the ones who are actually doing things. I'm running out of time, Guy. I'm not 21 anymore. I don't have time for. I feel I don't have time. My time's precious, and I want to use it as best I can. To the. So I'm not really too interested. I haven't got too much time to spare. Let's say that, for people who want to tell me what the world could be. if only. Do you follow me? Because the world isn't. And I've not really got too much time to spare for people who want to tell me what the world should be, really, as well. What it should be. The world is as it is. We have to deal with the reality, of what is occurring right now with the people who are here right now and the people who are actually who are trying the best they can to actually do things and are actually doing them. Not the ones who tell you what you should do or what you could do or what you might do. Nothing at all wrong with utopian daydreams, mate. Nothing at all with the concept of a utopian situation. But utopia does not exist and never will exist. All there is the journey. That's the important thing for me at my stage in life now, is the journey. I've got a certain number of years left, I hope, and I hope to spend them to my own satisfaction, as economically as possible, by doing as much as I can for the for the good of the greatest number of people that I can. I've not, I've never really, I've got no aspirations really of having a car, a yacht, and an aeroplane, and I don't even have a car because I don't want one. I'm content with just simply being here and just being part of this wonderful, incredible universe, this incredible world that we are so privileged, to be part of for a very brief, very brief period of time.
All right. I think we'll probably leave it at that if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's fine, guy. It's been really nice speaking to you, mate, and congratulations on what you're doing as well. You're a younger fella. You're much younger than me, and with the distance of age, I can see you've a lot to go through yet, and you'll have lots of ups and lots of downs. But you are definitely trying your best, mate, and it's really encouraging for elder people like me to see people who are really trying to do things. Thanks for having me, mate.
Well, it's been a pleasure, Joe. See ya.
See you later.